The fight between Gojo Satoru and Ryomen Sukuna held the manga community in a chokehold in 2023, with fans of each character trolling the others online. Sukuna was called Fraudkuna, while Gojo was labeled as the fraudulent one. The outcome of that fight satisfied many, but others refused to accept it, blaming either JJK or otherwise known as JJK for pulling bullshit during that fight. Even after a year, the fight remains the most talked about in the Jujutsu Kaisen community. Some people have convinced themselves that without Mahoraga, Sukuna would not have won. But is that really true? Without Mahoraga and the Ten Shadows, would Gojo have come out victorious? Well, let's find out. So, without any further ado, let's get started. One thing I want everyone watching this video to know is that the statement made by Coach after his death that Sukuna didn't go all out and that even without the 10 shadows, the fight might go either way is factually correct. It is not something Gege added on a whim but something that was present throughout the fight. If you guys read the fight without bias and with no agenda clouding your mind, you would have picked it up. Now let's remove some misconceptions of the story and the entire fight, and those are that Gojo was holding back. Many people seem to think that Gojo was holding back against Sukuna to save Megumi, but there are 5 instances that completely reject this notion. Number 1 is that Gojo used 200% hollow purple against Sukuna, which is not holding back. He even chanted to boost the power of hollow purple with the help of Utahime, Gakuganji, and Ichiji. That attack was not holding back. Gojo himself stated that he went all out and wouldn't hold anything back. Not once, but twice. Gojo crushed Sukuna and by extension Megumi's heart when his domain landed earlier than Sukuna's. And that was not holding back. Gojo tried to rip Sukuna's lungs and live reverse, attempting to bring Sukuna as close to death as possible. That was not holding back. Using unlimited hollow purple was not holding back. The second misconception was without Mahoraga, Sukuna couldn't get through infinity, which is absolutely not true. Sukuna could use domain amplification, which negates infinity on contact, and another way to get through infinity is through the short hit effect of Sukuna's domain. Sukuna only needed Mahoraga for the perfect counter to infinity. He already had 2 different counters, excluding the world cutting dismantle. Now, let's talk about the restrictions that Sukuna had in this fight. And yes, Sukuna did have restrictions in his fight against Gojo. These restrictions were number 1, he didn't use any technique other than the one granted to him by his domain. Sukuna used his curse technique individually for like 2 to 3 times during the entire fight. One at the start of the fight when he cut down the building, and the second and the last one when he cut down Gojo using Gold Dismantle. I don't really remember if he used it anywhere else, but the point is that Sukuna didn't use his curse technique for the majority of the fight, other than the one granted to him by his domain. He didn't use domain amplification to its fullest abilities. He used domain amplifications only for a few times. If you guys remember, domain amplification negates curse techniques, allowing Sukuna to get past infinity. Not only that, but Sukuna could also negate the effects of Gojo's blue enhanced punches as Gojo uses blue upon contact, giving him monstrous wrist striking strength, something that Sukuna could negate using his domain amplification. Plus, he could had to use domain amplification in small bursts so that Mahoraga's adaptation would not be nullified. Number 3 is that Mahoraga was just a crutch for Sukuna. Sukuna couldn't play by his usual combat style. He changed his domain conditions to affect everything except Megumi's soul, allowing Megumi to take the brunt of the adaptation while Mahoraga adapted to Unlimited Void. While this isn't really a limitation per se, but using 10 shadows caused him to reduce the use of his domain amplification and not use his curse technique entirely. Plus, he wouldn't really need to get beat up. Plus, he wouldn't really need to be beat up by Gojo nearly as much since he wouldn't need Mahoraga to adapt to blue or red. Number 4, he didn't use his true form so that he could fight against the Jujutsu sorcerers. Sukuna didn't really use his true form, which would have made the fight much more easier for him due to his extra hands, extra mouths, and extra eyes. While the true reason wasn't really stated, it can easily be assumed that he kept it in reserve since he knew that the other sorcerers would attack him after Gojo's death, and he needed the health buff that activating his two forms gives him. Number 5, constantly changing domain conditions, making his divine flame ineffective. While without it doesn't really, it's not really a limitation since he was kind of forced to do it due to his fight against Gojo, but it is still a limitation per se. Now, without these restrictions, how would Sukuna fare in this hypothetical scenario? And to mention one important thing, this fight would go very differently. Now let's start. Gojo starts the fight with 200% hollow purple with the help of Ichiji, Utahime, and Gakuganji. Sukuna tanks the attack, regenerating his hands. Gojo arrives and both of them start fighting, similar to how the canon goes. Sukuna might use domain amplification more in this fight, but it doesn't really matter since both of them would use domain expansion together anyways. Now, Sukuna would destroy Gojo's domain due to Malevolent Shrine being able to attack Gojo's barriers from the outside. Now, Gojo would use simple domain to stall while he heals his curse technique, which would destroy his brain and healing it to reset the burnout of his curse technique. He uses red to shoot Sukuna towards his shrine, letting Gojo come out of the range of the domain, of Sukuna's domain actually. This damage would be negated due to Sukuna using domain amplification. But I want you guys to remember something important. Sukuna's domain has not been destroyed yet. This will matter later on. The second domain clash happens where Gojo flips the barrier conditions of his domain. And here's something that you need to understand, and this is crucial. Sukuna could have used his curse technique inside the domain, similar to how Gojo uses blue, red, and infinity in his domain. But he chose not to because that would cancel out Mohoraga's adaptation. And since Sukuna does not have Mahoraga in this scenario, he can use dismantle from a small distance, targeting the inner barriers of Gojo's domain and destroying it faster. He wouldn't need to create a condition where his domain targets everything inside of it except Megami's soul. This would also mean that Sukuna would not create a binding vow to increase output at the cost of deactivating his short effect. Sukuna would easily destroy Gojo's barrier in the second domain clash, making Gojo use Falling Blossom emotion to negate some of the domain's damage. This would time the Gojo expands his domain and reduces it to the size of a tennis ball. Here, Sukuna's lack of restrictions come to play. After 3 minutes, Gojo's domain shatters once again, making him lose the third domain clash. Now, why is this? Well, in the canon storyline, Gojo damaged Sukuna to the point where he couldn't maintain his domain. But remember, Gojo enhances his strength using blue, and if Sukuna uses domain amplification, he could negate the extra damage. Moreover, Sukuna can also attack the interior barrier of Gojo's domain using his curse technique. So, Gojo's domain might be destroyed earlier than in canon. And even if you argue that Gojo dominates Sukuna in hand-to-hand combat without blue, blue is still a major source of damage for Sukuna. You guys can't deny that. Without blue, the damage dealt to Sukuna would be reduced. Now, if Sukuna negates that damage, he could endure for at least a second more, which would be enough to destroy Gojo's domain and land the sure hit effect of Sukuna's domain. In no logical sense would Sukuna lose the domain clash since he is not handicapping himself by not using domain amplification. Now, here's where things get interesting. From this point down, the fight can go any number of ways. Gojo could try a fourth domain clash, use a suicidal binding vow to take Sukuna with him, and attempt an unlimited hollow purple. However, unlimited hollow purple wouldn't really work because it requires time to make. Now let's just assume Gojo erects a fourth domain. Honestly, I think it would really change. But let's give Gojo the benefit of the doubt by saying that he somehow equalizes the domains, causing them to collapse at the same time. He damages Sukuna to the point that Sukuna might not be able to maintain the domain and both of them would get destroyed at the same time. Now, this domain, the collapse of the domain would be Sukuna's first domain. which would be active. Now, this really matters because Sukuna would be less damaged by Gojo and would be faster than him in the 5th class. Remember, Sukuna healed both his body and curse technique, whereas Gojo only healed his curse technique. The difference in speed, which is 0.01 seconds in canon, would logically never occur in this scenario. Even if Gojo managed to injure Sukuna enough to weaken his domain, it would still result in a draw. Now, this would be worst for Gojo because by this point his brain would be fried from repeatedly healing burnout his curse technique, while Sukuna remains comparatively intact. Another critical point is that Sukuna had only used his domain expansion twice here, rather than 3 times in canon, which means that he still has energy for one more domain. And since he didn't suffer from the effects of unlimited void, his brain isn't damaged, allowing him to potentially use another domain. In this hypothetical scenario, Sukuna can use at least 2 more domains, while Gojo deals with an exhausted curse technique, a damaged brain, and a reduced output. That means the second round, like in canon, would never happen. Sukuna wouldn't need Mahoraga to adapt to infinitely permanently, and even if the second round did occur, Sukuna wouldn't be beaten around by Gojo because he has the upper hand in this scenario. If Sukuna were to open his domain, Gojo would not have the proper means to survive. Whether he uses a simple domain, falling blossom emotion, or even regenerates his damaged brain for another domain expansion, Gojo does not have a clear path to victory. Unless Gojo uses a never before seen move surpassing Hollow Purple, he really does not have a chance of winning. Even without world cutting slashes, Sukuna's true form, with his extra hands, eyes, and mouth, would still prove an overwhelming advantage. And I am not even adding Sukuna's form in this hypothetical scenario. This is still Meguna without the 10 shadows versus Gojo. Not true form Sukuna. I'm making it clear, not true form Sukuna versus full power Gojo. It's full power Gojo versus Megumi Sukuna without the 10 shadows. But since this is a hypothetical scenario, one that will never come to fruition because the manga has ended. Both the manga and Gojo himself have stated that Sukuna has emerged as the strongest, and no amount of glazing, bias, or even delusion will change that. Thanks for watching. I know this is a longer video than I have ever done, but I felt that it was necessary after uploading an edit on the same topic. People claimed Gojo would win because Sukuna needed Mahoraga to win, but I feel that with this video I have kind of debunked it. But anyways, I hope to see you guys in the next What If series, and until then, ta-ta.